Welcome to join us in this week's edition of The Insight on Equinox Television. Tonight we take you deep inside the Catholic Church. My guest tonight is Christian Cardinal TUMI, Archbishop Emeritus of the Metropolitan Diocese of Douala. I will be right back. Yeah, welcome back. My guest is Christian Cardinal TUMI. He is the Archbishop Emeritus of the Metropolitan Diocese of Douala. Good evening.
Good evening.
Now, before we begin talking about religious issues, the New Deal government celebrated 2 days ago, 33 years in power. 4th of November 1982, when the former President Ahmadu Ahidjo resigned, where were you?
I was still the Archbishop of Garwa, and we got the news surprisingly. Nobody was expecting, nobody could imagine a Cameroon without Ahidjo. And quite a number of people in Garwa thought that there was a coup d'etat somewhere. But as hours passed by, we heard Ahidjo speaking, and he invited all of us to support his successor as we did himself. So we had the impression that it was a normal political succession. So peace started coming into the hearts of quite a number of the inhabitants of that city. So we, as days and weeks and months and years went on, we knew that it was a constitutional succession. It was in the Constitution that in case of absence or vacancy of the seat, the Prime Minister would succeed. So it was normal. But why Ahidjo resigned? That's the question.
Why did he resign? Question I posed to you.
I don't know really. I wouldn't like to venture into that. Some say if he was advised by his medical, his doctor to resign. Otherwise, he had not much longer to live. So not to hasten his departure from this world, he resigned from his responsibilities as the head of state, because that's a serious responsibility.
Now, could Ahidjo not prepare an ordinance, maybe appoint an ordinance as Prime Minister before resigning? In other words, was Paul Biya the best choice? Well,
I think for him it was the best choice at the time. I have no reasons to doubt his sincerity. Paul Biya had the experience. No sooner he left the university than he was around Ahidjo and other Cameroonians who were willing authority in the country. So the experience he had, the intellectual formation he had, so I think he had everything to make a good president.
And you have lived both eras, the Ahidjo and Biya, how can you assess both in terms of development, geopolitical situation?
Well, I don't like comparing. Everyone comes with his own charisma to a responsibility like the head of state. Ahidjo loved the country. Paul Biya loves Cameroon. I think I have no reason to say the contrary. And all of them are interested, all the two were interested in the material development of the country. They are interested in the country. So, but of course there are differences of approach. Like for example, I think since Paul Biya came to power, I don't know whether there has been any public execution of a Cameroonian. And I learned that one of the documents that he finds difficult to sign as President of the Republic is the condemnation to death of a Cameroonian.
What Ahijo was doing?
Ahijo did, there were many public executions. I still remember one that never left my mind. A thief was executed in Mankon there at Ayaba, near Ayaba Hotel. I was still teaching in the major seminary, Bambui. Never forgotten that, for stealing either a loincloth by breaking into the house. So this young man was condemned to death and executed publicly. I wonder whether the penalty was proportionate to the crime. And also, I think, in my own judgment, that there is more liberty of expression now than at the time of Amadou Ahijo. We scarcely hear about the word subversion. The expression is gradually dying out. If you were told that you were subversive, that was dangerous. You could be whipped up to Cholire or to Mantumal any time in the night, and your family would not know where you are. And the criticism, public criticism in the newspapers, in private televisions of the president, I doubt if that could be done at the time of Ahijo.
But at least that was then. Today we have democracy, we have international organizations fighting for democratic governance in countries. Biya has no choice.
Biya has not?
No choice.
Well, don't say he has the power to clap down as Ahijo had. Ahijo had the choice. Biya, the president of a country, has all the powers to do what he likes.
But that was then. I'm talking about, we have organizations now fighting for human rights.
There were organizations fighting, there were Cameroonians fighting for that, but they ended up in prison, political prison. There were then too.
But today, at least, we have the new communication, information technology. The world is a global village now.
I do not deny that. At the time of Ahijo, the world was not so closed in. Anything happening in Cameroon could be heard in any part of the world. It's not today, it's not during the last 33 years that the world has become a global village. No. With communication, planes flying left and right. What happens in Douala now, in a few hours, we'll hear it in any part of the world.
Today is just some few seconds. You have social media. Now, what you're saying is that the reign of Biya, 33 years, has been a bed of roses.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it has been a bed of roses, because we still have problems. There are some who still think that there is not we cannot have absolute liberty. Nobody can. Only God has absolute liberty. It's absolutely free. No human being. My liberty is limited by your presence. When I'm alone, I can do what I like. But when I'm with somebody, I can no longer do what I like. My liberty is limited. There's nobody on earth who is absolutely free to do what he or she likes. Nobody.
How has the Catholic Church contributed in Bia's 33 years of reign?
By doing her work in health, in education, and even in material development, because every diocese has a development committee. If you go to many dioceses, like the Diocese of Kumbo, my diocese of origin, almost every village now has water, thanks to the Catholic Church. In that area, there's a priest whose responsibility is just making sure that villages have potable water, good drinking water, because the organizations are ready to help, and the Diocese of Kumbu is well organized for that. So that is development. We are not only to propose the word of God to the people, we should also help the people stand up materially. Because man is not just the soul, man is soul and body, and the two have God for their origin. It's God who created us as human beings. Here in Douala, we have built hospitals and dispensaries, schools, colleges, and now the university. All that is helping the country, And all these have been authorized by the state. Recently, the state authorized the opening of the Faculty of Medicine in Kumbu.
What is the position of the church as far as the cry of the opposition is concerned, saying that 33 years back there have never been any democratic, any free and fair elections held in Cameroon?
Well, that is questionable. Not what they say, because from independence, I don't know whether there have ever been. Even when we had one party, I don't know whether the elections even then were transparent. Because all the votes were not counted before the results were announced. People were still carrying votes from villages to the center. When they were announcing the results, they were carrying. I wonder whether we have really ever organized really transparent and fair elections. The Cameroon Bishops' Conference proposed a body independent, having all the financial means, to organize the elections from beginning to end, just as it has just happened in Senegal.
We saw it in Nigeria.
We saw it in Nigeria. We saw it in Ivory Coast recently. So why not us?
So in essence, you are saying that 33 years in office, Paul Biya does not merit that position today?
No, I am not saying that. You see, who put Paul Biya there? Cameroonians. My own position is clear. Who is there doesn't matter to me. But how the person arrived there is important. Was it democratic? He was proposed to Cameroonians by his party, and Cameroonians in their good majority voted for him. So he's there legitimately. I cannot question it.
But from what you are saying, it shows that it was not democratic. Because even in 1992, when the opposition party cried foul.
It's my opinion. I cannot affirm categorically. It's not a revelation from God. My observation Maybe I haven't got all the details to make a pronouncement on that. From my observation, I'm not in the Njangi house, as they say, I'm not in there, because we have Christian observers of elections, and they give us information. They said this, and they always say, this yes, this no. This went well, this did not go well, which is normal. So I cannot say categorically that Paul Biya is worthy or unworthy. He didn't put himself there. He was put there by others. He succeeded constitutionally. His party put him there when elections were organized. What happened in his party is their private affair. He was proposed to Cameroonians. The majority elected him.
With some malpractices?
I have no proofs to affirm categorically that there were malpractices. But I always wonder, because there are always criticisms of elections.
Okay. It's time for us to take our very first stop in this edition of the Insight on Equinox Television. We go to the machines and have the interviews of the week.
On Monday around 10 o'clock, the aunt of this disease came to my office and told me that on Friday night, her daughter was kidnapped Friday in the afternoon, after school, around 2 o'clock after school. So those who kidnapped the child have been calling her since Friday night that she should bring the sum of 4 million francs.
In the level of peace, Biya has really achieved something. Even though it's not enough what we would have loved to have, but at least we can move freely. There are places where by 6 o'clock you won't move outside. It's not Boko Haram, it's just insecurity, which in Cameroon you see policemen everywhere. So I can say that in that aspect he has achieved something.
Last week I didn't have gas, but yesterday I came in the meeting. I was supposed to, when I passed around, they said that there's gas, so I have to sleep in the town so that we'll have the gas. But now I'm on the line. I think by the grace of God I will have it. I'm on number 29.
Once this norm will be approved, it will be mandatory for all architects to adopt energy efficiency measure in their building design.
These our urban areas, which we can call them towns, they are not well planned because the issue of planifications are not done before our towns are being constructed.
You're welcome back to join me. My guest tonight is Christian Cardinal TUMI, Archbishop Emeritus of the Metropolitan Diocese of Douala. Now, bishops gathered and defended marriage and the family. What is your take, especially on the idea of divorced persons having communion?
Well, you are touching there a domain that concerns us, where I can say we're experts. You are touching theology. You must look at the Word of God, the Bible. What does the Bible say about divorce? Summarily, Christ says, any man who puts away his wife and gets married to another commits adultery. And adultery is one of those sins that exclude from the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, adultery is a grievous sin. Any woman who divorces her husband does the same thing, is guilty of the same fault. So as long as they are divorced and remarried, they are living in adulterous union. It is clear, according to the word of God. And that is why they cannot go to communion. As simple as that. There is only one thing that can exclude us from going, a Catholic from going to communion. It is a mortal sin or a grievous moral fault. Nothing else. They can be separated and not remarry. The church can even grant separation but no remarriage as long as the marriage was valid. It is as clear as that. That is why the Pope cannot change that law. He cannot say that those who were married validly and divorced and remarried can now go to communion. He cannot.
What do you mean he cannot? Can bishops not?
He cannot permit somebody to go into sin, to do what is sinful. No council of bishops, because it is the word of God. The Catholic Church, visible, that is with the Pope at the head, has no authority to change the law of God. The Pope can only change the laws of which he is the lawmaker. He is the legislator of church law, and he can modify that. But not the 10 Commandments. None of them.
In Cameroon today, families don't live well.
And many more live well.
What are those factors that the church might want to ameliorate upon, apart of divorce?
First, no, we cannot ameliorate on divorce, but we always pray for the Christian family, for the family. And I should make this affirmation here, that family, marriage, which is the foundation of the family, whether the marriage be pagan or Christian, whether it be Muslim, Protestant, Catholic, every marriage as a marriage is sacred. Even pagan family is sacred, which is not Christian. It's not only Christian marriage that is sacred, but only Christian marriage is a sacrament. That is the marriage between a baptized woman and a baptized man. That's a sacrament. An outward sign of it that speaks about inward grace, a channel for the grace of the sacrament, because every sacrament has a special spiritual gift to encourage the person.
But how can families live a good life today in Cameroon, a society where prices of goods and services skyrocketing, there's hunger?
At every marriage, when the family comes into existence, there are promises made. First, fidelity. Even at the state register, there are promises. Do you accept this man? Do you accept this woman? Yes. And the presiding officer gives you advice. And in the church, there are readings of the scriptures, on marriage. Love one another. There are 3 things in marriage. Every marriage, I'm not talking of Christian marriage. Unity of marriage, one man, one wife. In polygamous families, there are always wars. If not between the wives, it's between the children as they grow up. Unity. The church promotes the unity of marriage. That is to say, one man, a young man, has a right to a wife, not to two or three. So polygamy is not of God. Second, indissolubility of marriage. That is, marriage is for life. It is not for a few days, weeks or months or years, even until marriage exists till the other partner dies. And then openness to fecundity. The aim of marriage is to collaborate with God to create other human beings. And God, when He calls you to that vocation, marriage is a vocation, He gives you the strength you need to go on, if you are faithful to your conscience and to the teachings of your church. So we do what we can, humanly speaking, and pray for the family.
But we talk of abortion too, which is getting rampant.
Well, abortion, yes, abortion. Even some girls are encouraged by the parents, and they commit the same sin of, as far as the Catholic Church is concerned, the medical officer who operates the girl herself, the parents who encourage her are all excommunicated from the Catholic Church. Whether they did it in secret or in public.
What if they did it in secret?
They are condemned, because we leave them to their conscience. They know what the Catholic Church teaches.
Christian Cardinal TUMI, there have also been debates on priests getting married and having children like any other human being.
No, that is true. It's possible, and it is existing. There are priests in the world today who are married. There's no contradiction between the married life and the priestly life. But this is one of being ready to move at any time. That priests should not get married is church law. It is not the law of God. People should know that. The church can change it today and say priests can get married.
So are you for or against if your opinion were seeked?
No. If the church decides, who am I?
What is your personal opinion on that?
No, they can't get married, but it's difficult to work well. I say that's why the church, the Roman Catholic Church, has found it difficult to allow that. I always give the funny example about myself. I was bishop in Yagua. 3 years, they transferred me to Garwa. It was not my problem. I had no problem to solve whether the climate in Garwa was convenient to Madame and the children, or whether they were. No, I just took my box and went away, even without a car. That's all. 9 years in Garwa, I'm told to come to Douala. I don't care. I only think of myself, because I wouldn't be thinking of a wife and children, whether the climate or the secondary school and all those things. No, I just disponibility to move. And that is why, a Catholic priest works 24 hours. Even if he's sleeping, they knock at the door, he has to move.
Does not want to multiply?
No, there are many children. The law of God that go and multiply was not addressed to individuals. It was addressed to the human race. And today the problem is that the population is growing too fast. That's the problem of the world today, not lack of children. And Cameroon were increasing by leaps and bounds. So we're obeying God as a people. It was not addressed to an individual. Because there are some individuals married, but they don't have children. It's God who gives children. A child is not a right. Nobody has the right to have a child. It's God who gives. See the point? So God himself made that, but he doesn't give the child to every couple. Even if the marriage is valid, having a child is not a right. It is a gift.
It's time for us now to take another break on this edition of the Insight on Equinox Television. The newspapers also got interest in some of the major events that made news during the week. This is the press review with Babila Jonathan.
The Post-Weekender reports an all-time increase in the prices of petroleum products in Cameroon as government annuls subsidies while stepping up the 2016 budget to 4,249.8 billion francs CFA. The paper also highlights corruption as the life wire of the New Deal regime in 33 years, with Cameroon winning the Transparency International World Corruption Trophy twice. In other news articles in this issue of the Post-Weekender, kidnappers drug a 9-year-old primary 5 people to death in Bamenda. Villagers of Dipanda, Mile 14, Boya Southwest region pray the FACO Senior Divisional Officer Zhang Trua to redeem them and their land from Honorable Fritz Etoke. Environmental activist Nasako Bisingi slammed a 1-year jail term or a 1 to 15 million francs CFA fine over Harako's farm project. CPDM grassroots organ reorganization goes deadly with journalists threatened and section presidents shooting out of evaluation meeting in the Kumba City Council chambers, while SDF militants in Tiko accused their electoral district chairman Mayor Daniel Mukondo of trying to eliminate his opponents in the party's reorganization exercise. The Star puts the fate of taxpayers in Cameroon on the balance regarding a possible tax increase as a result of the 500 billion increase in the projected 2016 state budget, with the increase from 3,746.6 billion francs CFA in 2015 to 4,249.8 billion francs CFA for 2016. It is feared that taxpayers may bear an additional tax burden. The Star also writes that while Cameroon is soliciting India's help in the fight against Boko Haram, the United Nations warns that there may be an upsurge of violence in the country because of escalating violence in the northern regions, coupled with the influx of refugees from Nigeria and the Central African Republic. In sports, the paper reports the appointment of a Cameroonian, Alexander Bellinga, as interim Indomitable Lions head coach by Tombi Aroko Sidiki, president of the Cameroon Football Federation. He takes over from sacked German-born Volker Finke. According to the Guardian Post, the sacking of Volker Finke signals the return of former Indomitable Lions captain and present highest goal scorer in the Turkish First Division League, Samuel Eto'o, his Turkish club teammate Jean de Makoun, West Ham's midfielder Alexandre Song, and Malaga's goalkeeper Idriss Kamini Carlos, who is among the top 2 goalkeepers in this year's Spanish La Liga campaign. Concerning the land-grabbing scandal in the FACO Division Southwest region, the Guardian Post reports that Senior Police Superintendent Esoka Dina Helen, who attempted to investigate the matter, has resigned following threats to her life as the problem takes a deadly twist. It is also reported in this issue of the paper that Professor Elvis Ngolengole is targeted for destruction by a group of persons described as Betty Power Mongers after his appointment as coordinator of the CPDM Academy. Sources are said to have hinted the Guardian Post that some Betty indigents qualified as power mongers argue that such a strategic post should have gone only to one of theirs. In the big story on the front page of the Guardian Post, it is indicated that the former general manager of the Cameroon Radio Television, Gervais Mendoze, could gain freedom if the Special Criminal Court entertains an audit report tabled by investigators. The audit report is said to have vindicated Mendoze, thus turning the tides of accusation that the Directorate General of Taxes and the Treasury Department for financial flaws. Eneo denies having hired striking workers. According to the advocate, officials of the National Electricity Generation and Distribution Company say striking meter readers and bill distributors in Bamenda are not their workers but employees of its partner, Europe Afrique International, that won the meter reading and bill distribution contract from the 10 Sonel, now Eneo. In a feature story, the advocate decries the extremely bad state of roads causing frequent accidents and hindering development in Lebialem, southwest region of Cameroon. The paper writes that traveling to Lebialem is not only a nightmare but demands fasting and prayers. The Green Vision writes that the influx of over 300,000 refugees from the Central African Republic and Nigeria and insecurity orchestrated by jihadist attacks are threatening food security in Cameroon. According to the paper, Akwaya in the southwest region is in a serious trouble. The highly enclaved locality is reportedly inhabited by more Nigerians than Cameroonians. It is reported in this coup that the Prime Minister has instructed ministers to respect presidential instructions requiring them to ensure that officials under the authority go on retirement when their time is due. In another news article, the paper highlights reasons to back the point that the presence of U.S. military personnel in Cameroon is a signal of doom to Boko Haram. And that's all we had time for this week. Take the appointment for next Sunday.
The press review by Babla Jonathan there. I am still here with Christian Cardinal TUMI. He is the Archbishop Emeritus of the Metropolitan Diocese of Douala, at the heart of the economic capital Douala. Now, when you look at the world today, you look at Africa and Cameroon, you see a miracle, hungry people. What explains this fast-growing phenomenon, the search for signs and wonders?
That is true. And another thing that strikes me about the world, our world, is wars and rumors of wars everywhere, especially in our continent. As far as wars and rumors of wars are, as long as the fundamental ethical law is not obeyed, there will always be wars and rumors of wars. What is that fundamental ethical law? Avoid evil and do good. Which in practice it is love your neighbor as you love yourself. As far as that law is not obeyed, and that law summarizes all the other laws, there will always be tensions in the world.
What about the search for miracle?
Search for miracle, yes, people are running around for miracles. If somebody comes to me that I should bless him, I always say, why do you want me to bless you? A lady comes to me the other day and tells me that our market is not working. That is, she's a trader, and that her business is working, and wanted me to bless her. So you want me to bless you so that your business
flourish,
should work well. I will not bless you.
Why?
The intentions are not pure enough.
At least she wants to live a good life.
It depends. You know, when Christ taught us Our Father, he said, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth. Whatever we ask of God, we should never forget that short expression that Christ included in Our Father, the will of God. And Christ as man was going to suffer. He saw his sufferings before him. And as man he was trembling and asked his Father to clear away from him this cup, that is the sufferings. And he immediately added, let your will be done. And from his whole life we know that it was the will of his Father that he suffers unto death.
In essence, these people running in search of signs and wonders
are looking for their will, not the will of God.
Are running faster than their shadows.
I would just say They're looking for their will, not the will of God. You can pray for your business. Don't wait until things are falling apart and then you come to look for the bishop, for the priest to bless it, and then hoping that miraculously you will take off. Maybe there's something you are not doing well. In the way you have organized your thing, nothing attractive. Publicity is not.
But Cardinal, what is interesting is that when they go there, they have the will. And the lame can walk, the blind can see, the deaf can hear.
Or if Christ could have decided that all the lame and blind of his time should be cured, you know, he said we could, and that there are miracles in the church today. But not to look for miracles as means, not to use God as a means. No.
And this is greatly affecting.
If you are in problems, if you have problems, if you are suffering, you pray the Lord. Like Christ, but let your will be done. If you want me to carry the cross, I accept it. We should tell God that. He loves me. He created me because he loves me. And if he allows me to suffer, that suffering must be for my good. That's where I logically reason. Because he has the power to liberate me from every suffering. He leaves me to suffer as he left his child, his son, to suffer unto death. That is why that small prayer, Lord, thy will be done.
But it is greatly affecting mainstream churches. The Catholic Church. Christians are gradually moving out.
The Catholic Church is growing by leaps and bounds. We baptize thousands every year. There are people who have problems and they think they can solve them. And there's a backward movement now. There are quite a number who are coming back to the church. They are discovering that, well, after all, there's nothing in those churches that they cannot have in the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church has all the means of salvation. There's no other church that has it. I'm not saying that because I'm a Catholic Church. I'm saying that because the Catholic Church was instituted by God himself. If it were a human institution, it would have disappeared long ago.
But there are times when the Catholic Church in its charismatic program at times also go out healing.
They pray. You know, they pray for the sick. I have a whole book approved by the church with prayers for the sick. Blessing of cars, blessing of houses. When a priest is praying, it is the whole church that is praying. But let the will of God be done.
Now, if rich men find it difficult to enter God's kingdom, it is because they do not share with the poor. A statement you made some time back in the month of October at the St. Monica Parish in Makepe. Tell us more your view on sharing with the poor.
And I said that because I was interpreting the gospel of the day, where a young man like you comes to Christ and says, what should I do to go to the kingdom of heaven? Christ tells him, if you want to go to the kingdom of heaven, keep all the 10 commandments. He mentions some of them. And the young man says, but I've kept all those commandments from my youth. What is still lacking? The young man was already on his way to heaven. Rich he was. He was a rich young man. Christ says to him, if you want to be perfect, go and sell all you have and give to the poor. Come, follow me. And the young man leaves Christ sad. And Christ turns his apostles, turns to his apostle and tells them, how difficult it will be for a rich man to go to heaven. What makes it difficult for a rich man to go to heaven? It is his attachment to his wealth. It's not because he has the wealth. A rich man is rich for himself and for others. If you are rich, it is a responsibility that God gives you. And you have to render an account of it, how you administered it, how you did the work you were given for your good and the good of the others. That is sharing. Look around, and there are quite a number of, I know one, rich man here in Douala who shares, who is employing quite a number of young people in his business to share. You know, so that's what share. Look around you and try to help others. Even recently, he employed a handicapped girl. Who would be, no businessman would want to employ a handicapped child. But this girl never has a master's degree. Handicapped. But she is now working with him, paid. She was qualified. So he came here to see me. I thanked him for that. No business house would like to get a handicapped person because what she does is diminished by the fact that she cannot easily move from one place to the other. You know, so sharing is helping those who are in need. And Christ said in Matthew, I think chapter 25, verse 36 to 41, how we shall be joyed on the last day. I was hungry. You gave me to eat. Thirsty, you gave me to drink. Sick, you came to see me. In prison, you came to see me. Nothing to wear, and you gave me clothes to wear. Simple things that almost everybody can do. That's what sharing means. That you look at what God has given you as riches, as a responsibility, and that what you have is for your good and your family, and also for the good of others who have not.
We go back to the machines to meet our reporter Mimi Mefo, who has a special story in this edition of The Insight on Equinox Television. She takes us to some major churches here in the economic capital Douala, and why not in Cameroon. She looks at the search for signs and wonders. That is the special report in this edition of The Insight.
Several churches have been at the center of attraction in the past few days, but not because they fulfilled the expected spiritual obligations. Église Évangélique du Cameroon is one of them. Two parishes, the Njonjo Parish and the Centenary Temple, are rocked by chaos. Christians are now divided, boycotting church services, and even want regional EEC officials to step down. Messages denouncing injustice, dictatorship and corruption brandished by the angry Christians say it all.
The reason why this church is closed today, you people have seen all that is written here. Why is it that pastors are interested in too much money nowadays?
Les chrétiens dans la fond ont investi les lieux dans la logique de ces revendications. Ont investi les lieux et ont fermé le temps.
Trouble started when the regional synod president transferred two pastors who were in charge of the Njonjo parish. Christians interpreted the move as an attempt by the EEC officials to do away with the people's choice and appoint those who would succumb to his demands.
They want to change pastor after just a month of transferring of pastors. It doesn't make any sense that they should decide that they change pastors.
The transfer of pastor is a matter of the whole church seated in an institutional, let's say that setting, and then taking a common decision for transfer of pastors. And that's exactly what we did.
They accuse Pierre Makonmange of corruption and embezzlement, but the former says that his hands are clean.
We know the war Makonmange again. He don't chop 8 millions. He don't care la, make it go.
Je ne reconnais pas, je le dis en toute à mes consciences.
It's just a question of misunderstanding. And apart from misunderstanding, it's a matter of ignorance.
While EEC is battling to restore order, Église Protestante du Cameroun in Douala is also at the center of discord. 3 pastors of the Bedi parish were thrown behind bars after they transformed the October 18th Sunday service into a battleground. Leadership squabble was the bone of contention this time. Happenings in these denominations alongside other traditional churches have prompted Christians to believe that money is now the key interest of religious figures that they before now looked up to for spiritual and moral upbringing.
The problem comes from money. In some churches now, it's money, 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 money. That's why the Christians are angry. They don't want it to be that way, because somebody leaves his house or her house to come to church is to pray to God. The pastor is there to guide them through their spiritual aspect of life.
Several Christians in frustration are now seeking solution in other religious movements. Pentecostal churches are attraction to many in search of signs and wonders, miracles, and deliverance. Their innovative spirit has caused tens of thousands who had almost given up to have hopes. Hope for a better future, hope for miracles, hope for deliverance and spiritual upliftment.
Nous croyons que le Cameroun est béni et que tous ceux qui ont mis pied ici, même ceux qui voient à travers les médias, sont connectés parce que la distance n'est pas une barrière. Il suffit de croire. Si tu crois, tu reçois.
Je sais qu'avec cet événement-là, je peux aussi changer ma part de vie.
Any power, any demon, where the whole this country, where the whole any.
Cameroon, though a country where there is freedom of worship, has time and again witnessed government interference on newly created churches. René Emmanuel Sadi, the Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, has proceeded to seal the doors of countless Pentecostal churches, but their numerical strength are still growing by day.
Pour une autorité de quelques 5 années de travail sur la religion.
This sociologist has carried out an in-depth study on religion, miracles and healings.
Il y a d'abord la perte de la crédibilité ou bien de la vitalité des églises ou bien des religions que nous disons traditionnelles.
He explains that lack of credibility and hope on traditional churches justify this mad rush for miracles.
Mais vous allez voir qu'un travail de fond appuyé, le mal revient toujours.
He added that what many do not know is that the lifespan of the so-called deliverance is limited. Is the proliferation of churches proof of a morally upright society? Can hope be eventually rekindled in some of the churches rocked by financial and corruption scandal? And above all, is it still common knowledge that the church is the light of the world? Only time would provide answers.
Yeah, welcome back after that special report by Mimi Mefo. And I am still here with Christian Cardinal TUMI, the Archbishop Emeritus of the Metropolitan Diocese of Douala. Now, before we move into some actions that have been taken by the Pope Francis, when you look at crisis in the church today, will you say it's a love for money? There are some churches that were divided 2 weeks back here in Douala, and Christians have been talking about money, money, money in church
not
today.
The Catholic Church.
I know it's not the Catholic Church, but it's about Christianity. Can money divide Christians in the church today?
Yes, of course it can. It can. It depends how. You know, it depends. In our church, that is the Roman Catholic Church, the financial situation of every diocese is organized in such a way that at the end of every year, the bishop has to send to the Holy See, to the dicasteries concerned. We call dicasteries what we would call here ministries, the financial situation of his diocese. And every year the Pope receives the conferences of bishops, Catholic bishops around the world. And before we go there, every diocese makes a financial report, material report of his diocese. Report of his diocese. For the last 5 years he was there. So we are controlled. The dioceses are controlled. So every bishop has to be careful. The method is different. It has its own way. You know. So when you ask somebody, what reform has he made?
He has, at least he dared to answer the issue of homosexuality.
What has he changed from the teaching of the church? Nothing. All he said was that they should be respected because there are some places where, there are some families where if a child is homosexual, is rejected. Nowhere in Africa they would accept that. You know? That's not a change.
Saying that, is it not like indirectly accepting them, accepting the practice?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. The Pope cannot accept the practice of homosexuality. He would be sinning grievously. He cannot tell the world that to be a homosexual, that a man should marry a man, is all right. The Pope will never and can never, he will never say that. If he said that, there will be a schism in the church.
So he's just asking families to welcome.
Yes, to love. Christ loves us sinners, but he does not love our sins. You can love a sinner without loving the sinner's sins. Yeah, the fact that you respect somebody does not mean that you agree with all the person is doing. No. That's why the Paul is respect for them. There's whatever the sin of a human being, the Catholic Church teaches that he is still created to the image and likeness of God. He can never sin so much that the image of God is completely wiped away from him. No. Why? Because as long as he's alive, he can still become a saint. A devil today, as far as human beings are concerned, can become a saint tomorrow. And a saint tomorrow of today can become a devil tomorrow.
If you were asked to compare Pope Francis and other popes that have...
There's nothing to compare. When Pope John Paul II died, they proclaimed him a saint already. They are forgetting. You know, they proclaimed him and he became a saint in record time. The church proclaimed that solemnly.
The manner in which the government has been handling the Boko Haram issue, are you personally satisfied the way things are handled?
You know, I find it difficult to criticize a technical situation. It's military. I cannot say whether militarily it is well organized. The food that is brought up there, sent by Cameroonians, the money is it well? I have no data to say yes or no. But I see that Cameroonians are interested. And in fact, it's thanks to Boko Haram that many Cameroonians now know the north of Cameroon. Many did not know. When I went up there, Many were surprised that I was going to a Muslim. They did not know even that there are Christians in the north. I told them there are 4 dioceses in the north. Catholic, they're not counting Protestants, just our own faithful. Many were surprised, and when they saw that my successor coming from the north, so there are young men who had gone to the seminary up to the point of becoming bishops. He said, many did not know. It is now with the Boko Haram that many of us don't know our country. My mother dies, and many people came from Douala to Kumbu. They were discovering Kumbu for the first time. They thought this was a wonderful place. You can come on tourism here, you can come here on holidays, not going to Europe.
Do you think there is any Anglophone problem in Cameroon?
I think there are Anglophone problems. Difficult to reduce it to a problem. After reunification, there are also advantages that the Anglophones have had after reunification. We were there when all happened, and we are there when Anglophones are complaining.
So tell us what happened.
I was not in the Fuman conference. From my observation and from my listening, we have been influenced by 2 different cultures, foreign cultures, the Anglo-Saxon and the Francophone. That can be good for us as far as opening to the world is concerned. But when it comes to action, the Anglophones don't feel satisfied. When it comes to the development of their own part of the country, they do not feel satisfied. And I mentioned that critically in one of my books. I said, when you look at the geographical situation of the northwest and the southwest, one has the impression that everything is done politically and geographically to prevent those coming together easily. Was it intentional? So that those who remain apart, because unity is force. Those are questions one has to ask. And in one of the parishes where I went on pastoral visit, a Christian asked me, are Anglophones marginalized? I told him, it's difficult for me to answer your question, but all I observe that there are always assistants, and that there are certain ministerial positions they have so far not occupied, and maybe they will never occupy.
Defense, finance.
Yeah. That's all I observe. And they have right to political ambition. These young fellows who are militating for secession, which I'm not for, to be frank with you.
You are talking about the SCNC?
Yes. They wrote against me that I said I was not for secession, that I was for the Federal Republic. Cameroon as a federal republic. I think many agree with me. And I go by the all Anglophone conference that was called in Buea. They were trying to see how to dialogue. They didn't want to. It was when it became impossible that they started moving apart. So that is where I say it's difficult to reduce the Anglo, the English-speaking Cameroonians. Difficult to reduce their problem to a problem. Because when there are many, and then I said there were advantages of reunification.
So what could be the solution to this, to the Anglophone problems in Cameroon?
Federation. That what we call provinces could become states. They are states, they are countries made up of states, like America, like Nigeria next door, where the governors will be elected, where they will have their own parliament, as we had already. Buea had a parliament for the English-speaking Cameroonians. But now, of course, the population has grown. It will be houses of parliament. Of course, the central authority, powerful central authority, with certain powers like mines and so on, the army. No state should have the army to stand up against a federal state. Yes. But enough forces to cater for the peace of the state. And then people will fight for them, just like in America and Nigeria. If you go to Nigeria today, the federal routes are all going bad. But the roads of the state are good. Certain competition.
It was a pleasure having you in tonight's edition of the Insight on Equinox Television.
Thank you.
You had a fine contribution. We help televiewers much. We'd like to have you some other time again.
I'm always there.
It was a pleasure.
As long as I'm able to sit up. I like to, especially when it touches the church, because there are some false ideas that go around about the church, out of ignorance. People need to be enlightened, and we're there for that. Thank you.
That does it for this edition of the Insight on Equinox Television. My guest was Christian Cardinal TUMI, the Archbishop Emeritus of the Metropolitan Diocese of Douala. Thanks for watching. Good night.
So those are my titles. Christian Cardinal TUMI. I am Emeritus Archbishop of Douala.
Yes.
Not the other way around.